May God's name be glorified. I'm sure all of us are studying the book of Esther, preparing for the quiz next month, at the same time putting in genuine efforts to understand, to get the true knowledge of what the scripture wants us to know. And today we are going to look at Esther, an overview, and also the unseen hand of God, and the four unbelievable things that has happened in the book of Esther. The picture that you see on screen, what is here, right here, is the remains of the palace of Sushan, and it is still there in the modern day Iran. And one more proof of the authenticity of the word of God. So we will quickly take a look at the book of Esther, and what we can learn from this book. Okay, the book of Esther can be divided, has been divided by many people in different aspects, but this is something which I liked. And this talks about God's providence among his people during both hard times and happy times. So chapter 1 to chapter 7 are difficult times for the Jewish people, and then chapter 8 to chapter 1 is a time to rejoice. So these are the broad two divisions of this book. And then the first part, the harder time, is divided into four parts. Chapter 1 to 2 is the king's banquet. Then chapter 3 is Haman's edict. Chapter 4 and 5, the courage of Queen Esther. Chapter 6 and 7 is God's deliverance. Then in happy times, we see Mordecai's edict, or request by Esther to revoke the edict of the king. Then we see the Jews rejoicing, the enemies being destroyed, the feast being established, and finally peace, and the big position that Mordecai holds. So we see two different kind of situations here in this book itself. This one of the circumstances that we see is threat, and threat of extermination, total destruction. At the same time, they trust in God. And then chapter 7 onwards, we see the deliverance and praise of the people. We see three feasts here: the feast of the king, the lavish banquet of the king. We see the feast of Esther. We see the feast of the nation, the people rejoicing after deliverance. Uh, it is believed that the incident mentioned in the book of Esther happened somewhere around 483 BC to 473 BC. Though there are some difference of opinion, but it is more of the people believe that it happened during these 10 years of time. The theme of this book is the sovereign accomplishment of God's purposes through ordinary people and apparent coincidences. How the sovereignty of God, the purposes of God are fulfilled, are brought to pass through ordinary people, and things and the events unfolding one after the other, how they are connected one to another. Two very important scripture portions here are, or the verses which are most talked about in the book of Esther is one we read in chapter 4 verses 12 to 16. I'll request Rakesh Bhaiya to read, and then chapter 10 verse 3. These are the key verses: chapter 4 verse 12 to 16. In that, most importantly, 14 and 16. Yeah, Rakesh brother, please.
जी एस्तर की ये बातें मोर्दकै को सुनाई गईं। तब मोर्दकै ने एस्तर के पास यह कहला भेजा, तू मन ही मन यह विचार न कर कि मैं ही राजभवन में रहने के कारण और सब यहूदियों से बची रहूंगी, क्योंकि जो तू इस समय चुपचाप रहे तो और किसी न किसी उपाय से यहूदियों का छुटकारा और उद्धार हो जाएगा, परंतु तू अपने पिता के घराने समेत नष्ट होगी। क्या जाने तुझे ऐसे ही कठिन समय के लिए राजपद मिल गया हो। तब एस्तर ने मोर्दकै के पास यह कहला भेजा, तू जाकर शूशन के सब यहूदियों को इकट्ठा कर और तुम सब मिलकर मेरे निमित्त उपवास करो। 3 दिन रात न तो कुछ खाओ और न कुछ पियो। मैं भी अपनी सहेलियों सहित उसी रात उसी रीति उपवास करूंगी और ऐसी ही दशा में मैं नियम के विरुद्ध राजा के पास भीतर जाऊंगी और यदि नष्ट हो गई तो हो गई।
10 का 3 भी।
यहूदी मौर्द के अक्षरक्ष राजा ही के नीचे था और यहूदियों की दृष्टि में बड़ा था और उसके सब भाई उससे प्रसन्न थे क्योंकि वह अपने लोगों की भलाई की खोज में रहा करता था और अपने सब लोगों से शांति की बातें कहा करता था।
I'll read it in English, chapter 4, verse 14. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, there shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Verse 16. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So these are the two important verses. Now we will quickly take a look at the book, most importantly, starting from the beginning. The major characters that we see in this book, we see King Ahasuerus, that is his Persian name, or Xerxes, which is the Greek name. So he is a key character here. Then we see Queen Vashti, who was the queen or wife of Ahasuerus. We see Mordecai, the Jew here. We see Haman, the person next to King Ahasuerus. And we see Queen Esther, who replaced Queen Vashti. Now, the setting of the incident of this book is in ancient Persia, the capital city, which is called as Susa here. Okay, this Persian Empire, as we read in Esther chapter 1, verse 1, was a massive empire. It was huge. It spanned across the globe. And chapter 1, verse 1 says, now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107 and 20 provinces. He ruled at over 127 provinces. That was massive. And he was a very, very powerful and powerful king. And we see his glories, his riches and honor being explicitly displayed in chapter 1. Today, Susa is called Shush, and it is in the modern day Iran. And for a very, very long time, people from different countries have come there and have excavated and have studied. And the picture that I showed you right at the beginning is the remains of the palace of Sushan. So the remains are still there in the modern day Iran. Okay, what makes this book very unique? One of the only two books in the Bible named after women. The first is Ruth, the second is Esther. So we have only two books which are named after women. The most the biggest of the uniqueness, what we can say is the name of God is not mentioned in the book at all. Not even once is God mentioned throughout the 10 chapters that we have. But what's important is that though the name is not mentioned, right from the beginning to the end, we see the wonder working hand of God, the unseen hand of God at work. The events recorded in Esther are celebrated each year with a holiday called Purim. As Mordecai instituted this in chapter 9, asking the people to celebrate this, the festival of Purim. Even today, this festival is celebrated, remembering the deliverance God made for the Jews through Esther and Mordecai. Now, we see, though God, as I said, is not mentioned in this book, but we see God and his work throughout this book. God is always working and sometimes unseen. We don't see here God, but we understand it how God works through different people, even the most powerful one. what's really attractive is God uses ordinary people for extraordinary purposes. We don't see Mordecai and Esther like the faith that Abraham had, like the prayer life that Daniel had, or the faith that Noah had. But of course, they had a certain degree of faith, but probably not like these great men of faith had. But yet they trusted God, and we see that God used them to do something which was unbelievable. God has done that in the past, God has been doing it, and God can do in the future as well. You look at Moses, he could not even speak properly, but God chose him to deliver his people from the powerful king of Egypt, and how God used him and ultimately delivered his people, and Moses being leader of the group. We see God in the New Testament, we see God choosing his disciples, people who were the in the lowest strata of people. If you look at, many a fishermen, God choosing them, people who wouldn't have anyone known, such people had they not been called by Jesus Christ. But how God called them, how God chose them, and how God has used them for extraordinary purposes, such that even we talk about them today. Uh, this is explicitly seen here in this book, that God is sovereign. People will come, people will go. Dynasties will come, dynasties will go. Powerful people will be there. But above all of it, God is sovereign. God is absolutely in control, and there is nothing and there is no one who cannot be used by God to be fulfilling his purposes. We see the providence of God for his people throughout the book. We see how God has been providing for the need of his people. And finally, we see the great God as the one who keeps his promises, the great promise keeper. When God called Abraham, when he called him out of Ur, he promised him that I'm going to make you a people who will be like the stars of the sky, who will be like the sands of the seashore. And God had to keep that promise, and God fulfilled that here in Esther at a time when total destruction, or the entire Jewish population, was to be exterminated. God remembered the promise that he had made with him, with Abraham, the man who was very, very close to God, and who was ready to even sacrifice his own son. And God reiterated that promise after that incident, that I will make your descendants like the stars of the heaven, like the sand of the seashore. So God is keeping that promise. So in the book of Esther, we see God always working, God using people, God is sovereign, God provides, and God the great promise keeper. Now, the providence of God is abundant throughout this book, providing as and when and appropriately. We see God at work. He ensures selection of Esther as queen. Esther was a critical factor when it came to rescuing the Jews from the plot of Haman, and she was the most important of all that was used there. And it was God who worked behind the scenes to ensure that Esther is selected as a queen. God ensured that Mordecai's deeds are recorded in the palace records. uh, what if the deeds were not recorded? Things probably would have been different, but God ensured that his deeds are recorded, and the king goes and checks those records. Esther's admission to the king's court, this was against the law. No one was permitted to come to the king's court except being asked by king. But here was God helping her out, and getting finding that favor from the king, and her admission to the king's court. We see God's providence in ensuring the perfect timing of Esther's two feasts, one before the gallows were made, one after the gallows were made, and the perfect timing of Esther proclaiming or telling king the problem at hand. God is involved in Ahasuerus' sleeplessness, and the solution to it is also, we understand that was at work. God sees that Haman's gallows will be used in an unexpected way. Haman, his wife, his friends prepared that for Mordecai, but God used it for Haman himself. We see God giving Esther great favor in the sight of the king. Across, we see that whenever she went out to him, she found favor in the sight of the king. God makes it possible for the new decree to be given, the old to be revoked, and the new decree to be given. He gives the victory to the Jews. Okay, so the providence of God is abundant throughout this book, right? From the first chapter to the 10th chapter, God is working for his people, the group of people whom he had chosen, the one who came out of Abraham. Now, when we look at Esther, we understand that her name was Hadassah, that we read in chapter 2, verse 7. Rakesh भैया पढ़िएगा, chapter 2, verse 7.
उसने हदस्सा नामक अपनी चचेरी बहन को, जो एस्तर भी कहलाती थी, पाला पोसा था, क्योंकि उसके माता पिता कोई न थे और वह लड़की सुंदर और रूपवती थी। और जब उसके माता पिता मर गए, तब मॉर्दकै ने उसको अपनी बेटी करके पाला।
Yeah, so her name was Hadassah, which means myrtle. It is a plant, and it is used by the Jews to symbolize peace with God and prosperity. We read that in Isaiah 41:19 and 55, verse 13. The name Esther is a Persian name, and it means star, and something to do with their god called as Ishtar. Okay, so Esther is a Persian name. Now we come to the most important section of our meditation today, is the four unbelievable things that we see in the book of Esther. Four unbelievable things. First, a captive girl becoming the queen of this big province, or a king who ruled over 127 provinces. Okay, the background is this. If you remember Ezra and Nehemiah, we have meditated upon this. 70 years of captivity is over, and in the meantime, it was first the Babylonians who took them captive. Then the Babylonians were defeated by Persians, and King Cyrus now begins to set the captives free, and the people have now started returning back to Jerusalem. A big group of people has gone back, but not all of them went back to Jerusalem. Some decided to stay back. One of the probable reasons of people not going back to their homeland is that they probably did very well in this new country or the new city. We understand that by the gifts that they gave to the people when they were returning to Jerusalem, the gifts that they gave for the reconstruction of their temple, the gifts that they gave to the people to carry it back to Jerusalem. So probably some of the people did really very well. Their businesses flourished. Some probably held big positions in the palace of the king, and can be one reason why people did not want to go. The second reason can be that this was a very prosperous time. Under this king, the kingdom prospered, and who would like to go from a prosperous country to a city which is in ruins, to a city which is inhabited by very few people, and you have people from different places residing there. It's like asking people to move from the modern day New York or London and coming to smaller cities or smaller towns in UP or Bihar. So that kind of a comparison you can understand. So probably that was the reason many did not return. We don't know why Esther and Mordecai did not return, but we understand that they had not gone back. Now, from the words that we just read, we understand that Esther's parents had died. Both father and mother had died. She was an orphan, and she was raised by her cousin Mordecai. Mordecai calls her as his uncle's daughter. So Esther was Mordecai's uncle's daughter, and Esther, an orphan raised by her cousin, captive in a foreign land. I'm sure that Esther, in her dreams, also wouldn't have ever imagined to become the queen of this great kingdom. Okay, to become the queen of Ahasuerus. A captive girl became the queen, but that's what we are going to look at, how God turns impossible situations into possibilities. Now, the setting in chapter 1 is King Ahasuerus has set up a banquet. Okay, that banquet is lavish, and the banquet and the presentation goes on for a very, very long time. We'll read that from verse 3 onwards, or verse 2 onwards. Rakesh bhaiya padhiyega. Verse 2 to verse 7. Okay, this shows the riches and honor of the king. Chapter 1, verse 3 to 7.
वहां उसने अपने राज्य के तीसरे वर्ष में अपने सब हाकिमों और कर्मचारियों को भोज दिया। फारस और मौदे के सेनापति और प्रांत प्रांत के प्रधान और हाकिम उसके सम्मुख आ गए। वह उन्हें बहुत दिन तक, वरन 180 दिन तक अपने राजसी वैभव का धन और अपने महात्म्य का अनमोल पदार्थ दिखाता रहा। इन दिनों के बीतने पर राजा ने क्या छोटे क्या बड़े उन सबों को जो शूशन नामक राजगढ़ में इकट्ठा हुए थे, राजभवन की बारी के आंगन में 7 दिन तक भोज दिया। वहां के पर्दे श्वेत और नीले सूत के थे और सन और बैंजनी रंग की डोरियों से चांदी के छल्लों में संगमरमर के खंभों से लगे हुए थे, और वहां की चौकियां सोने चांदी की थीं और लाल और श्वेत और पीले और काले संगमरमर के बने हुए फर्श पर धरी हुई थीं। उस भोज में राजा के योग्य दाखमधु भिन्न भिन्न रूप के सोने के पात्रों में डालकर राजा की उदारता से बहुतायत के साथ पिलाया जाता था।
A lavish banquet, and in fact unbelievable. You know, the party went on, the display went on for 180 days, and then for everyone there was a party of 7 days, and we see the beds being of gold and silver, the vessels for drink being of gold, and each vessel of a different kind. This was a display of the majestic, richness of King Ahasuerus. He was showing to the world that he is very, very rich. He is very, very powerful. Honor and riches belongs to him, and that was the reason of him displaying to the world. And because at this same time of history is when Greek emperor, they were also coming up, and it was posing a challenge to this king. So that is when the king, to show to the world that he is the best, he is the finest, there is no one to be compared, throws out this lavish banquet. And we see that Queen Vashti is the queen, and after 7 days of merriment, verse 10, we see that on the 7th day, when he was merry with wine, he commanded that Vashti, the queen, should be brought in front of the people with the crown on her head to show to the people that she is very beautiful. So it's not just about the riches and the honor that he had, but he was also very, very proud of the queen that he had. But Vashti refuses to come over. Vashti had her own party going on, and we don't know why she refused. But those days, refusing a king's order is inviting death. The penalty was death, nothing less. But Vashti dared to refuse, and now the king is infuriated. King is wroth, and he asks the wise men who were with him, "What should we do unto Queen Vashti? What should be done?" And then the 7 princes, verse 14, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which were with the king, one of them answered that Vashti has not just done wrong to the king, but to the princess and to the people in the kingdom. When the people will get to know what Vashti has done, the other women also might practice that. They will look down on their husbands. They may refuse to obey. Hence, an edict should be given that Vashti will no more be the queen. She will never come in front of the king ever again. She is deprived of her privileges, and a new queen will be selected. So the outcome of Vashti's refusal is her being removed from being a queen and all the privileges. What is why she was not given a death penalty, we don't understand, but she escaped the death penalty. Then in chapter 2 we understand that the wise men and the king's servant that ministered unto him suggest a type of beauty pageant, where girls from the 127 provinces of Persia are brought in, and the girl whom king likes can be selected to be a queen. Now we see in verse 8 of chapter 2. Rakesh भैया पढ़िएगा chapter 2 verse 8.
जब राजा की आज्ञा और नियम सुनाए गए और बहुत सी युवतियां शूषण गढ़ में हेगे के अधिकार में इकट्ठी हो गईं, तब एस्तर भी राजभवन में स्त्रियों के प्रबंधक हेगे के अधिकार में सौंपी गई.
Okay, it says that Esther was brought also unto the king's house. So probably she could not do much about it. Though unwilling, probably she would not have wanted. We don't know. But it says that she was brought. So there was no option during those times. But if the king has asked, you have to do it. Otherwise, you are killed or you are given death penalty. So we see that now Esther, who was brought up by Mordecai, is now brought unto the king's house, unto Haggai, who is the keeper of the women. Even when Esther is taken to the queen, we read that in verse 16, that Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month. She was taken. So though not voluntarily, but yet the God has turned this situation into her favor. She underwent an extensive training process. Okay, the training to meet the king lasted for 12 months. Okay, that we read in verse 12 of chapter 2, where 12 months of training was given, a preparation time was given, wherein not just that they were pampered with oil and myrrh and sweet odors, but I'm sure that the etiquettes, the manners, the way to meet the king, the way to meet the king, the way to talk to the king, the way to dress, everything would have been explained to Esther. So a detailed, delicate, and extensive process of preparation was done, and she underwent all of it. I'm not sure how much she or the other girls enjoyed, but they had no choice, and it happened. Now, she was in a difficult situation, but wherever she was, whether it was with Haggai, whether it was with the other people, we see that by her character, by the way she carried herself, by the way she presented herself, by the way she spoke, she obtained favor from all that looked upon her. We see that in verse 9, chapter 2, verse 9. Padhiyega Rakesh bhaiya, the first part. Yeah, the पूरा वाक्य ही पढ़ दीजिए. Chapter 2, verse 9.
वह युवती उसकी दृष्टि में अच्छी लगी और वह उससे प्रसन्न हुआ. तब उसने बिना विलंब उसे राजभवन में से शुद्ध करने की वस्तुएं और उसका भोजन और उसके लिए चुनी हुई 7 सहेलियां भी दी, और उसकी सहेलियों को रनवास में सबसे अच्छा रहने का स्थान दिया.
15वां आयत का आखिरी भाग भी पढ़िएगा.
उससे अधिक उसने और कुछ न मांगा. जितनों ने एस्तर को देखा वे सब उससे प्रसन्न हुए.
Okay, so not just Haggai, but everyone who looked on Esther, she obtained favor in their sight. And most importantly, now she is in the presence of king. Okay, this process of selecting the queen must have been very, very long. We read in chapter 1 that it was in the third year of the reign of King Ahasuerus that he invited people for the party, third year. And the selection of the queen in the form of Esther happened in the seventh year. So probably this selection started in fourth year, because third year the party started, 1.5 years passed on, and then the plan started, then the selection started, and it is in the seventh year that Esther is being selected. So the king would have come across many girls, many women, but she obtained grace and favor from the king. And chapter 2 verse 17 says, padhiyega Rakesh bhaiya, chapter 2 verse 17.
राजा ने एस्तर को और सब स्त्रियों से अधिक प्यार किया और अन्य सब कुंवारियों से अधिक उसके अनुग्रह और कृपा की दृष्टि उसी पर हुई। इस कारण उसने उसके सिर पर राजमुकुट रखा और उसको वष्टी के स्थान पर पटरानी बनाया।
Okay, we don't know how many girls were there, but even if one from one of the provinces of the king's kingdom, at least 127, but the numbers could be much more, because the time span is a very, very long time. And among all of it, we see that Esther obtained grace, Esther obtained favor from the king, and he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Could ever Esther imagine that in a captivity, in a foreign land, without father and mother, she would ever be the queen of this great kingdom? But God was working behind the scenes. God, in his infinite wisdom, had foreseen what was coming, and so he was preparing his people to be at the right positions to work for him. So one of the learnings that we get from this particular portion or part is that God puts at places to fulfill his plans and purposes. So whatever position God has given, whether small or big, God has placed us there to be fulfilling his purposes. God, in his infinite wisdom, sees what is coming ahead, and God places us there to be fulfilling those purposes, to protect his people, to fulfill his purposes. The second unbelievable thing that we read in the book of Esther is a gatekeeper becoming the prime minister. Okay, a gatekeeper becoming the prime minister. So we read about Mordecai, okay, again a captive in a foreign land. But 5 things stand out for Mordecai, okay, compassion, wisdom, courage, faith, and hope. Okay, we see his compassion when he is ready to adopt Esther as his own daughter. Okay, Esther's parents have died, and Esther is Mordecai's uncle's daughter. And here is Mordecai taking up that responsibility to bring her up as his own daughter. I was just wondering, in modern times, with so much of facilities that we have, would I ever have done this if at all there was something of this kind in my family? Probably not. I would not have that courage to be taking up the responsibility of any other child. But 2,500 years ago, I'm talking about something which happened 2,500 years ago. We know that Mordecai was not someone who was holding a great position and had so much for himself that he could have taken the other responsibilities. But he had compassion. It was out of sheer compassion that he was ready to take up the responsibility of raising up Esther as his own daughter. Now, when Esther has been taken to the king's court under Haggai, we see that he goes every day, okay, every day to check how Esther has been doing, okay. Chapter 2, verse 11. Padhiyega Rakesh bhaiya, chapter 2, verse 11.
मोर्दकै प्रतिदिन रणवास के आंगन के सामने टहलता था।
Thank you. Yeah. Mordecai walked every day to check how Esther is doing, what love, what compassion he had for his uncle's daughter. Then when he comes to know about Haman's edict, he expresses his grief. he is crying and he cries out loud in the midst of the city, and he cries with a loud and a bitter cry. Chapter 4, verse 1, we see that he cries with a loud and bitter cry, and he puts on sackcloth. He expresses his grief over the edict. It's not just that he will be dying. No, that pain is not that he will be dying, but the pain of the entire community being destroyed. He was expressing his grief, and he was expressing his compassion for his people group. And when the queen Esther got to know about the situation of Mordecai, she sent dresses to Mordecai through her servants, but Mordecai refuses to wear that, and it again shows his sorrow and his solidarity, his compassion for his own people. So Mordecai was someone who was having compassion. We also see he was a man of wisdom. Okay, when Esther was going to the king's house, he prohibited Esther. He warned Esther that in no case she should be revealing her identity. In no case she should tell anyone that she is a Jew unless and until she gets a go okay from Mordecai. It is only after Mordecai tells her that you go and tell about us to the king is when Esther reveals her identity. Okay. So that's one. So he used his wisdom to see that Esther gets into that position. At the same time, her identity is protected. Then when Mordecai got to know about the assassination plot of Ahasuerus, when two of his chamberlains decided to assassinate the king, he could have gone to the king and shared this with the king, and he would have got riches and honor and popularity. That he could have done, or he could have reached out. If reaching out to the king was difficult, he could have reached out to the second in command to the king, or someone who was very powerful, and he could have expressed this to that person, and again he could have got something for him. But he did not do that. But we see that he informs Esther about this plot, and that we read in chapter 2 verse 19 onwards, where he reveals this plot to Esther, and it is Esther who goes and tells the king. So the objective was very clear, that Esther's stature in front of the king should increase, and the king should be more appreciative of Esther. And with that objective, he gave away the riches and honor which she could have got, and he used his wisdom so that Esther obtains that position of repute, position of power. We also see that Mordecai was someone who had the courage to stand up. At different encounters with Haman. Haman was someone who was placed by the king as next to the king. Okay, and the king had given a verdict that everyone should bow down to Haman, but Mordecai refused. We don't know the reason, but one of the probable reason which many of the Bible scholars believe is chapter 3 verse 1. Rakesh bhaiya padhiyega chapter 3 verse 1.
इन बातों के बाद राजा क्षारेश ने अगागी हमदाता के पुत्र हामान को उच्च पद दिया और उसको महत्व देकर उसके लिए उसके साथी हाकिमों के सिंहासनों से ऊंचा सिंहासन ठहराया.
Okay, we read that Haman was an Agagite. Remember Agag, the king of Amalekite, whom Saul did not kill. Amalekite are the descendants of Esau, and they were the first to attack the Israelites when they came out from the bondage of Egypt. And God had said that he will destroy this people group from the land. And even when he destroys, the people should always remember what this people group had done to them. So probably this would be one reason why Mordecai refused to bow to Haman and refused to obey the king. So there's a difference of opinion in this, where many people believe that Mordecai, being a God's child, should have obeyed the king's verdict, whereas many say that what he did was standing up to his belief. Nevertheless, he had the courage to stand up because he was standing up against Haman, and it meant death, but he had that courage to stand up. Then we see about Mordecai having hope in God's calling and provision. Chapter 4 verse 14, which we have already read. He had hope and he had the faith in God. He's told Esther that even if you don't do, or even if you don't go and talk to the king, God will make a provision, God will make a way out. That was his trust in God. He had hope in God that God will not leave his people. And ultimately, he was doing that which was right in God's eye. He was not doing any of it for royal position, but he was doing it for that which was right in the eyes of God. He was taking a stand, and he was believing that what he did was right in the eyes of God. And therefore, what we read in chapter 10, verse 3, God gave him the highest of position, the one who sat at the gate. We see many places where Mordecai is sitting at the gate, king's gate. Chapter 2, verse 19, Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Many places we see that he was one who sat in king's gate, but from king's gate to becoming next to the king. And we see not just that he was next to the king. Chapter 9, verse 4, we see that Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Chapter 10, we see that Mordecai was advanced by the king. Mordecai got promotions and promotions, and he was next unto Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews. He was the greatest of Jew of those times. A gatekeeper becoming the prime minister, possible only with God. Okay, with men it is impossible, but with God nothing is impossible. God raising up a man from gate who was sitting at the gate to be becoming next to the king. Okay, the third unbelievable thing that happened in this book is Haman making the gallows for Mordecai, but being hanged on the same. Okay, chapter 5, verse 14. After the first banquet of Queen Esther, Haman comes home. Okay, and Haman is sharing with his wife Zeresh and his friends about Mordecai, and how he doesn't like Mordecai not standing up to him, not respecting him. And then his wife gives him a suggestion: why don't you make a gallows and 50 cubits high, and go and speak to the king tomorrow, and let this be done tomorrow. Let Mordecai be hanged tomorrow, and we will have a solution forever, and then we will take care of the people group. Okay. What we read in Proverbs 21, verse 1 is something we must always remember. Okay. We will have powerful people, and people who are determined for evil, but how everything is in the hand of God. पढ़िएगा नीति वचन उसका 21 का 1. In English it says the king's heart. Yeah, पढ़िएगा.
राजा का मन नालियों के जल के समान यहोवा के हाथ में रहता है, जिधर वह चाहता उधर उसको मोड़ देता है.
The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. Haman has prepared the gallows, and okay, he is coming to the king to ask his permission to hang Mordecai. So it has to be done tomorrow. And we see that that night, God does not allow the king to sleep. Chapter 6, verse 1, it says, on that night could not the king sleep. Okay. God did not allow the king to sleep. We don't see anywhere the king not able to sleep. But chapter 6, verse 1, he is not able to sleep. And the solution also, what is the solution? He asks for the records of the chronicles to be brought and to be read. Okay. So no sleep. And solution, he could have asked for some fun time, call someone who can play music, call someone who can do some act, something he could have asked for. But God makes him ask for the records of the chronicles, and God makes him read what Mordecai had done for him. He comes to that portion where he is reminded of what Mordecai had done, how he revealed the plot to assassinate him, and how the two people were caught and they were hanged. And then the king asks, what has been done for Mordecai? And we see that the people tell him that nothing has been done for Mordecai. Then the king asks, who is there in the court? And the people tell him that Haman is here. So by this time, Haman has already reached the court to seek king's permission to hang Mordecai. And Haman calls, and the king calls him. Okay. And the question that king asks him in chapter 6, verse 6, and the king said to him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Okay. Now Haman is imagining in his heart, who can be better than me to be honored by the king? I'm the best across all the princes that the king has. I'm the finest, I'm the best. There is no one like me. And if the king has to honor, it has to be me. So the best of ideas Haman is giving to the king. He tells the king, get the royal apparel, okay, get the king's horse, get the royal crown, and get the best person of the king. Take this person onto the streets of the city and proclaim in loud voice that this is how the king honors them whom he delights. And the king tells Haman, chapter 6 verse 10. उसका लास्ट पार्ट पढ़िएगा राकेश भैया, चैप्टर 6 वर्स 10, द लास्ट पार्ट.
जैसा तूने कहा है उसमें कुछ भी कमी ना होने पाए.
Okay, let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Okay, for whom? Chapter 6 verse 10, the first part says, then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew that sitteth at the king's gate. See, the king also knew that he sits at the gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Oh, the tides are turning, it's changing. Okay, what Haman thought for himself and what big things he asked for himself, he had to do it for Mordecai. God, the king is commanding Haman to do that for Mordecai. So the one who decided to hang Mordecai, God made him honor Mordecai first. God made him to do that. So it is Haman who is carrying Mordecai on the king's horse with the king's apparel and the crown on his head, and he is shouting in the streets of the city and proclaiming before him, saying, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. Verse 11. Okay, things have suddenly changed unexpectedly. Haman expected something else happened. Okay, and we see that in verse 12, Haman is mourning. He is coming home. He goes home mourning. His head is covered, and he tells this to his wife and his friends, and his wife and friends tells him that you will not prosper. If he's a Jew, you will not be successful. And then in chapter 7 we see that he is called for in chapter 6 end, while he was talking to his wife and friends, he is called for the second banquet, which is the next day banquet of Esther. And it is in this banquet where Esther tells the plot. Esther pleads for her life. Esther first tells us that you please spare my life and my people's life. And the king was like, who is this who's planning against my queen? Okay, that would be the obvious question, you are my queen, who is designing this against my wife and your people? So that is where Esther tells that the chapter 7 verse 6, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. And we see that Haman is afraid now. And we see that king goes out to the garden palace, and when he comes back, he sees Haman on the couch where Esther was, and he is furious. And by the time he expresses his fury, the people have already covered his face. And one of the chamberlain in verse 9, Harbona, suggests to the king that Haman has already prepared a gallows for Mordecai. Let him be hanged there. And the king permits that, and we see that Haman is hanged on the same gallows he built for Mordecai. Again, an impossible situation. The next day, Mordecai was to be hanged. Okay, and Mordecai knew that something is coming up because he had stood up against the edict of the king, and he expected that something would happen. But God was at work. God can turn the impossible to possible. The one who decided to hang Mordecai was hanged. And before he was hanged, God made him do the honor, proclaim the honor of Mordecai in the city. So when we look at things around in our nation as well, or around the world, we can see people making big plans. Okay, we can see very powerful people making big plans of changing the discourse of a nation, changing the discourse of the world, changing the discourse, even the map. People dream of changing the map, but remember, above all of this is God, and he can use the same plot over against the one who is building that plot. Okay, the final unbelievable thing that we see in the book of Esther is a people group about to be destroyed being delivered. Okay, the Jews are about to be destroyed. It all starts with Mordecai refusing to bow to Haman. Okay, and Haman is infuriated. Who is this person not to be bowing? The world bows to me. Who is Mordecai? The probable reason I have already shared. Okay, now not just punishing Mordecai, Haman now decides to destroy all the Jews who are throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. Okay, and he goes to the king. He tells the king that there is a group of people who don't follow our law, our commandments, and you permit me to destroy them, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silvers. Okay, chapter 3, verse 9. And he makes the king sign a decree. The king trusts him. He's next to the king. He's the best among the princes that king has. And the king says, whatever you like, you do. And the decree is signed, and the decree is sent across the provinces of all the people in their language. Chapter 3, verse 12, we see that in their language, it has been sent. So now the people have got to know that they will be exterminated in the 12th month. So this happens in first month, where they put lots and they get the date of the 12th month. Chapter 4, verse 1, which we have already seen, the response of Mordecai. Okay, padiyega Rakesh brother, chapter 4, verse 1.
तब मोर्दकै ने जान लिया कि क्या क्या किया गया है। तब मोर्दकै वस्त्र फाड़कर, टाट पहन, राख डालकर नगर के मध्य जाकर ऊंचे और दुख भरे शब्द से चिल्लाने लगा।
Okay, the response of Mordecai, he cried. Okay, he was weeping bitterly. The cry was bitter. And where did it cry? He did not cry in the house. He went to the midst of the city and he cried. He cried for the people to know that he is in deep pain, deep agony, and he is concerned about his people group. Then chapter 4, verse 8, he sends this copy of the decree of the king to Esther, and he asks for the help of Esther. He tells Esther, you should be helping. The first response of Esther was that no one is permitted to come into the presence of the king without invitation. And whoever comes, if the king does not raise the golden scepter, he or she will have to die. Okay. Then in chapter 4, verse 14, which we have already read, Mordecai expresses his confidence in God and tells Esther that you go and do. If you don't do, you will perish, your father's household will perish, but help for the Jews will come from somewhere. What confidence he had in God. You know, he trusted the one who had called his forefather. He trusted the one who had called Abraham and had promised to Abraham that I will be making your seeds as the seeds of, as the stars of heaven, as the sands of the seashore. So he had that confidence in God, and he said that help will come. Maybe for this time you have become the queen. And then in 4 verse 16, Esther is convinced, and she says that if I perish, I perish, but I will go and speak to the king. And in chapter 5, we see Esther's invitation, Esther inviting king for the banquet. Before going to, we see Esther going to the king, and she must have had the fear in her heart, you know, going to the king is not permitted, but she went, and God making the king raising that golden scepter, and Esther inviting the king for the banquet 1 in chapter 1, and banquet 2 in chapter 7, and there Esther expresses her trouble, and there we see that Haman is executed. And then in chapter 8, again Esther goes to the king and requests for revoking the decree, and we see that king not just revoking the decree, but giving the house of Haman to Esther, and the elevation of Mordecai. So a people group which was about to be destroyed, delivered, and we see victory for the Jews in chapter 9, how the people celebrated. Okay, God turning their sorrow to joy and mourning into a good day. Chapter 9, verse 22. Okay, they were sorrowful. They knew that their death is at hand. The 12th month had come and they would be destroyed. But at the last moment, things changed. The decree was revoked, and the ones who had planned the execution, or the planned the destruction of the Jews, were the ones who were caught and executed ultimately. And the Jews, the people group, this people group was delivered. So the application, okay, Let us always remember that God is at work, okay, though unseen. There are situations in life where we feel that, where are you, God? Why are you not coming and helping me? But remember that God is at work at the right time, at the appropriate time. He will show forth His power. God will never leave His children. For sure, know this. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, we read, I will never leave you nor forsake you, an unchangeable promise, which means that it is impossible for God to leave His children. So, situation may be exactly like what was in the time of Esther, okay, facing extermination. But remember this, it is impossible for God to leave His children. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Okay, God will provide. Okay, in Matthew chapter 6, where we see that if God can take care of the fowls of the air, if God can provide for the fowls of the air, if God can provide for the lilies of the field, how much God cares for us. Are we going through difficult phase of life? Remember, God is the provider. God's providence is enough for us. Have courage, take a stand. Okay, Mordecai had the courage to take a stand against King Edict. The probable reason we have already seen. We also come across various phases of life in the society that we live in, at the workplaces, at the people that we meet, wherein we have to take a stand, take courage, stand for God. If it is right in the eyes of God, take a stand, rest everything will be taken care by God. Okay, remember, always remember this. God can use ordinary people like you and me for fulfilling His extraordinary purposes. They were not, Mordecai and Esther were not the brightest, not the finest, not the best, but God used them for extraordinary purposes. Remember always that fasting and prayer is critical for success. We see that Esther asked Mordecai and all the Jews of Shushan to fast for 3 days. We don't read about prayer, but fasting and prayer goes in hand. For any success that we are looking at, make sure that a good amount of time is being spent in fasting and prayer. Five things which is expected out of us: compassion, wisdom, courage, faith, and hope is expected out of us. Okay, then listen to mentors, pastors, elders, evangelists, who remember that they are placed by God. God has given us some seniors in the church, seniors in our life, people who have worked hard to build us in Christ, and listen to them. Esther decided to listen to Mordecai, though Mordecai was asking something which was very, very challenging, which could have even costed her life. But Esther listened to her, listened to the mentors, listened to the pastors, listened to the elders and evangelists. Okay, have confidence in God. Mordecai, though we don't read much about his faith life, but from one verse we understand that he had a true understanding of God and His power. He was confident that help will come, if not from Esther. What is our confidence in God today? Have a clear understanding of God and His infinite power. God can use anyone and everyone, even the most powerful of our times, to fulfill His purpose. Expect a miracle. A miracle was not just during the time of Jesus Christ when He was on the earth. His wonder working power is at work even today, and He can turn sorrow to joy, mourning to a good day. Expect a miracle. At positions of repute and power, seek the good of your people. When God gives you positions which are of high reputation, which are of power, which comes along with a good, handsome money, use that to seek the good of your people and speak good to people. And lastly, everyone who is against God and His people will be taken to task one day. Take heart, take rest. We are not fighting against flesh and bones, but remember that a day is coming when God is going to take everyone to task. Whoever is against God, whoever is against God and His people, and everyone who has acted against God in the past, everyone is going to be taken to task. So let us find rest in these learnings that we had this day, that God is sovereign, God is at work, God will never leave His children. and expect a miracle. Let our faith and trust in God increase as we look in the life of Esther, expecting a miracle and expecting God to use us for his extraordinary purposes. May his name alone be glorified.